Good evening, and you're very welcome to episode 12 of the podcast. It is, of course, the League of Ireland Women's Premier Division podcast here on finalwhistle.ie with myself, Breifne, Earley, and my able sidekick, Aaron Clarke. Aaron, another week, plenty of goals to talk about over the weekend, but we're probably going to focus a little bit more tonight on a bit of change at DLR. New manager, the king is dead, long live the queen, as it is in Belfield at the moment. Graham Kelly has moved on to a role with St. Patrick's Athletic. The very best of luck to him as he moves back into the men's game. But replacing him, well, if you've got to replace him with somebody, if you've got somebody on the staff who's already got a league title in her back pocket, it's not a bad place to start. We're going to be chatting to Laura Heffernan in just a couple of moments. But Aaron, your thoughts on the weekend and I suppose the events of last night?
Absolutely gutted for Treaty at the weekend. That's probably I think I said last week they could get something out of the Wexford game, and they nearly got all 3 points. So close, so close. Lots of drama with Bows and Athlone. Couple of easy enough games for some sides. And on terms of the drama from last night, listen, Graham's done a lot for DLR. He come in when they were at a particularly bad stage. He's done a lot for the league, but it's a great opportunity for Laura, being the fact that, as you say, she won a league with Wexford. She won an underage league with DLR Waves. She's had success with Shelbourne underage sides as well. So listen, it's a great opportunity for Laura, and it's one I'm sure she'll be looking to grasp with both hands. It's granted to say DLR are probably in a bit of a transition phase at the minute, but considering she'd have worked with so many of them underage players as well previously and had success with them, there's no better person, as you say, to have a ready-made replacement there, someone who can just step up and be like, okay, cool, Grant. She's on the pro license course as well at the minute, which is a massive achievement in itself. So it's great for DLR that they have the replacement. They'll be sad to see Graham go, but like, listen, you can't not wish him well, considering he's done a lot for them, and I'm sure Laura will be looking forward to getting her teeth stuck in and really trying to see how much she can bring DLR on this season.
Yeah, we'll hear about all of that in just a couple of moments. But first, maybe a quick flick through the results of last weekend. Plenty of goals in Tala, 7 in total. Shamrock Rovers 4-1 up at the break. Only managed to hold on, essentially 2 goals for DLR in that instance. Brought them back into the game for a cagey last couple of minutes for the Hoops, but they did hold on for that win. Peamount 2-0 winners as well. Shells had a big win in Sligo. Athlone almost salvaged a point, maybe against the run play against Bows on Saturday evening as well. So just goals galore everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, goals galore. I think for the fact that when you see 4-1 for Shamrock Rovers, you're thinking this could be 7-8, but great from DLR to come back in and score them a couple of goals and make it nervy for Shamrock Rovers. Like, I think for DLR, they hadn't scored in a couple of games as well, so that's one thing to tick off the bucket, that they've actually got back on the score sheet as well. Young Eve O'Brien's a smashing young player, so there's a lot being talked about her. But in terms of, you talk about Athlone, the barren run just continues. They can't get over the line. Narrow defeats in the last couple of games. It's a sort of game where you think they get back to 2-2. They're thinking, oh, lovely, we'll get a point. I know we'll delve deeper into the game a little bit later on, but for them, and to concede the way they did after scoring the late penalty was probably the most disappointing thing. And as you say, big wins for Shells. Young debut for Kate Keane. She come on in the second half, and like, God, the Peamount train continues. It was a hectic weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, maybe let's delve inside that DLR game with our guest on tonight's show, and we welcome her back to the program. Laura, of course, you were here, I think it was 2 seasons ago, almost to the week, when we had you on the podcast, maybe a week or two later than 2 years. But you're very welcome back, I suppose, and you're very welcome back as the new manager of DLR Waves, announced last night. Your first impressions after being offered and accepting the job, I suppose, really.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a hectic week. Obviously, a lot of emotion flying around within our own group this week. Very sad to see Graham go. Obviously, we're a very kind of tight knit group, staff and players. So it was sad to see him go. But it's just about now ploughing on and getting stuck in and hopefully keeping things going and building on what he's built over the last 5 years.
How was the news broke to the players? Because obviously you say about a tight knit group, like you're looking all over social media. I won't name the players in particular, but there's several players posting, thanking Graham and stuff like that. How was breaking the news to the team?
It was really difficult, for Graham himself and obviously myself. having to watch him do that, and the committee as well, because I know it wasn't an easy decision for him. It certainly wasn't a decision he took lightly. But look, myself, the girls, everybody at the club, you can't stand in his way. It's a fantastic opportunity for him, and we wish him all the best, and there's no doubt he'll be successful.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have him on in the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll like a little bit of a debrief with outgoing managers from the league, just to get their perspective on their time in the competition. But for you, I suppose it's a return to the dugout as the main head honcho at a club. You've been in this role before. How have you feel the role is different now, maybe, than when you left the first team manager's role at Wexford a couple of seasons ago?
I suppose it's changed in many ways. I've probably changed a lot since I took that Wexford job. It's back 2017, 2016, I think it was. So you're talking about nearly 10 years. It's 7 years since I done that head coach job. Doesn't seem that long, but when you put the dates in, so like I've obviously changed a lot as a coach. But the league itself, how far it's come on, the competitiveness of the league this year, I think is there for everyone to see. There's no such thing as an easy game now. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's definitely a new challenge. I know, like you said, I've been there, but Wexford was a big learning curve for me in terms of my own professional developments, and hopefully I can take what I learned there into this job.
Did you ever think it'd come again, Laura? Because obviously you went with Shells, you were working at the underage structures, you were working in and around the first team, and then you come to DLR. You were sort of 19s, then into seniors. Did you think another opportunity would come within as the main role?
It's always hard to tell. Obviously, any of the main jobs, there's always a lot of competition for them. So you just never know. I've said quite openly, going back to underage football, I think helped. It helped me, I suppose, mold my coaching skills a little bit. It's a different way of dealing with people, dealing with players, dealing with parents. So I think it gave me a more rounded approach to coaching. I've probably done it backwards to what most people do. Most people start underage and work up to senior. I kind of done it the opposite way. So yeah, look, I didn't think it'd come this quick, but now that it's here, it's not really something you can turn down.
Yeah, talk to us about the club itself. You've been there a few seasons now. You've been involved in a lot of those youngsters that have broken into the first team this year, their development. You must know this group very well yourself personally, so that it does give you that bit of an advantage to maybe another new coach coming into a team like that.
Yeah, I suppose for the girls, it's continuity. They obviously, they know myself. All the rest of the coaching staff are staying on. Nobody else is moving on. So for them, it's great. It's kind of another training week, and it's business as usual. I know that might sound harsh, considering Graham is literally just gone. But for them, it's just they have to just get back to a routine. There's a game on Saturday, and we have to just get on with it and move forward.
Especially, I think the timing is probably is the one thing that a lot of people will look at, considering off the back of the run of results that you've had in recent months. But like, even when I spoke to Graham after the Shelbourne game, he was talking about what was coming down the line in terms of get fixtures and stuff like that. So is it a bit of a double-edged sword for the girls, especially considering the results haven't gone their way? And then Graham, like, how do you pick them back up around that?
It's a difficult one. Like, I won't say it's a rebuilding season. You can say that in the sense of the amount of players that we lost at the start of the season. Just looking at that group, apart from the fact that they were good footballers, the experience, they were all experienced National League players. So when we talk about a rebuild, there is a lot of new bodies in the door, but there's serious quality within that squad. It's just obviously the age, getting them up to first team level, and the mistakes are going to come. That's going to happen with younger players. So is it a rebuild? Yes, in a sense, but if you look at the quality that's there, we've been really competitive in games. It hasn't been a case that we've gone out and lost badly in any game. So the girls have been really competitive, and it's just about building on that now.
In terms of, I suppose, short-term objectives, what's the plan for the next few games into the World Cup break? I'm guessing win games, but what are the main targets you're setting this group over the next 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, the girls know themselves in-house what the goals are and what we want to do. At the moment, it can't be all about results. It has to be about developing the girls, developing the players, and keeping that group together now going forward. Yes, it's hard not winning games, but like I said, it's not a case that we haven't been competitive. We really have. The girls were really disappointed on Saturday not to come out of Tala with something. Shells, they scored their second goal late on. Wexford scored their second goal late on. So it's not like they haven't been thereabouts in games. It's just cutting out those little mistakes now that's going to get them to the next level.
You talk about, talent in the squad, the young squad. Is this All-Ireland Cup that's coming up, is that a nice opportunity as well? Because a lot of players who may lack a bit of experience, they're not sitting on the fence for 8 weeks between the league stopping and restarting. Is that a good opportunity for some of them players, maybe someone who haven't got as many minutes in the National League, to get that little bit of extra experience and then grow a little bit more?
Yeah, I think this competition is fantastic. Not just for for the players, but for the game as a whole. I think it's really exciting, and it's something new, and you're not playing the same teams that you play week in, week out. It's a new challenge, and look, the girls are really excited about it. You never know. It's a cup competition. You never know what might happen, and if things click and things go well on the day, you never know where it might lead.
Speaking of that cup, the draw took place last week, and I suppose you can't be disappointed with the draw that you got in that competition, because there's 3 teams there that I think any DLR side will be very confident taking a field against them, that they can pull it up or even win that game or go into the game as favourites. Like, there's none of the real big names in that group. Can you top that group? Can you get to a semi-final?
Look, you'd like to think so. We go into every game, believing that we've a chance of getting something out of it. The girls never go out with any other mindset. They're always very positive. So yeah, look, we'll approach it in the same way. Hopefully, if results go our way, like you said, you top a group, you get to a semi-final, and then anything can happen. Semi-final once off, and you don't even know who you'll be playing, and that it could be a team from the north. Again, another new challenge. So it's exciting. And yeah, the staff and the players are really looking forward to it.
A couple of things I want to pick up on there that you've just talked about. Mindset in particular. Like, you talk about how underage football has revolved your coaching style. How has it changed how you approach things and approach players' mindsets and sort of over the last couple of years? Because when you're at Wexford, there's no doubt you had a really experienced group. This time you were a really young group, and having worked with underage, especially the success with the DLR 19s team to win the league. How do you transition, the mindsets of players in and around games as well? Because you talk about performances rather than results. How do you transcend the mindsets to make sure they stick towards that?
Again, it's hard. Like, every player wants to be competitive and they want to win games, but a lot of young players, even though they believe in themselves and, they have that self-belief, a lot of them, they do still struggle with confidence, and they have self-doubt like every player. So it really is just getting them to believe in themselves and come together as a group. Again, younger players, they can't do things at first team level that they do at 19s. It's not that easy. They don't get as much time on the ball. They can't take on 3 or 4 players. So it's just little things like that, getting them to adapt to that quicker style of play and, the more aggressive nature, I suppose, of first team football. But, the girls are growing every week. You can see them growing, and it's just, it's getting that confidence in them and making them believe that, it could take 6 months' time, but, if you keep at it and keep growing as a group, you don't know where it's going to lead.
Speaking of growing and developing and that gap between being in the hot seat before, you're now on the pro licenses. Aaron mentioned in the build-up to the interview. What have you taken out of that journey through the coaching pyramid in the country and the pro license in particular, in terms of the new job that you've taken on this week?
Yeah, look, it's just learning. Every week, every day, it's something different. It goes without saying, the coach education and the pathway through that, it's been really rewarding. It's been challenging at times. Some parts I've really enjoyed, other parts I've really struggled with. Over the years, those courses have been very male dominated. And when you're a younger female coach, that is difficult. But I suppose in hindsight now, you're on the pro license again. It is the only female. So I suppose in hindsight, it's probably prepared you for the top part of it. But the journey, it's been long, it's been difficult at times, but a week like this week, when you get this opportunity again, it's worthwhile.
Only the 3rd female coach to come through the FAI to be on the pro license course. you're looking at Sue Ronan and Eileen Gleeson, two people who've both been involved. Well, Eileen now the head of women's football and was involved with the Irish women's national team. Sue Ronan obviously managed Ireland. But like for you, Laura, what is that sort of opportunity? Like you're now the person who the next generation of female coaches look up to, considering you're the next one on that pro license course.
Yeah, look, it's something that I'm very proud of. You know, I like to think that, you know, I've spoken and kind of dealt with a lot of the younger players and females that have done coaching badges, and you know, I'd like to think that I've kind of helped support them in anything that they needed. You know, Sue and Eileen have been very good to me throughout the years. They've always been there to bounce off of if I've needed anything. So, you know, it is something that I'm really proud of, and to see the amount of female coaches coming through the game now. You know, it's something that's a testament to, I suppose, the FAI and women's football, and the fact that it is growing.
That phone call comes in this week. I don't even know if it was a phone call, but I'm assuming it was a phone call. Comes in, says Graham's left, offers you the role. Did you need much time? How long did you need to make that decision to take on the role, or was it just an automatic yes?
Yeah, I didn't need that much time, to be honest. You know, I'm really happy at the club. The club have been very, very good to me. And look, like I've said, I have huge belief in that group of players, not just the younger players, but, you know, the older core of players that have been there for a couple of years. You know, there's huge talent there. And yeah, look, you know, we have a bit of a way to go, but, you know, I really have full belief in that group that they can push on and do well.
Walk us through, you know, you telling the players, I assume it was you who told the players you were taking over as manager. What was the reaction like, and what were you like when you were telling them?
Yeah, no, it was a group effort. You know, the committee, Graham, you know, we were all there together. Like I said, we're a very close-knit group. So it was very important that, you know, that the girls received that news in the right way. Obviously a lot of shock. There was a lot of them not expecting it. And like I said, a little bit of emotion from everybody, but you know, it was very important to us as a group that the girls did receive that message as a collective, and that you know, they know everybody in the club is on the same page and that we're moving forward together. You know, despite the fact that Graham has moved on.
Just to follow up onto that, Graham done an awful lot for DLR as a whole. It's going to be a big shoes to fill, considering there was a lot of things just off the field that he took care of as well. How do you feel about having, you know, the more responsibilities off the field as well as on the field?
Yeah, I don't think they can be filled. I'll put it that way. You know, the work he did in the background was Trojan, but yeah, look, I mean, you know, it's not just the first team with us as a coaching group. You know, we have the 17s and the 19s in training with us regularly. There's a very close relationship with the 17s and 19s staff. You know, and the committee are excellent. So, you know, the stuff that goes on in the background, there is probably a few more bits and pieces than what I realised. But yeah, it's a good group, and you know, I'm sure everybody's going to row in together to make sure that progression continues.
On the plus side, you get to hang out with two gobshites like us. In terms of, I've been very lucky myself to have had time at, I suppose, a precursor to the club, UCD, but it was back in the old Belfield Park days. That'll put an age on my involvement. But it's a really good environment there for young athletes coming through, with the university on site as well. I know it's been UCD Waves in the past. It's kind of flipped and flopped between them in terms of their involvement. But what's the relationship like with the college? Is it more than just a venue you play in, or is there a relationship there building behind the scenes?
Yeah, look, I mean, the college and all the lads involved on the college end they're extremely supportive. You know, they do help us out a lot when we need it, and you know, the access to the bowl and, you know, match days, everything is there and ready for us. They're extremely supportive. You know, and the same with us. You know, we love to see the lads doing well, and you know, we feature in their programs, you know, on a weekly basis and things like that. So there is a nice relationship there. And looks, you know, hopefully we'll continue to grow that.
And just in terms of that relationship, like how key is it to have a venue like the Bowl? Because we see there was times where there was talk when DLR were coming in, is it going to go back to Jackson Park? They installed cameras in Jackson Park in case they had to stream the games. Like, how important is it that when you're especially trying to keep players or attract players to the club, that you can turn around and say, listen, we have UCD, we play in the Bowl? How important is things like that?
Oh, it's massive. You all the young players coming through now, they want to play in the best stadiums. They want that environment and those surroundings. And look, I think most clubs now are doing that. Everybody's playing in the main stadiums. They're all looked after the same as what the men's teams are on match day. So yeah, I think it's vital that we continue that. I think the Bowl is one of the best venues in the country in terms of football. Especially on a nice summer's day. It really is a lovely environment to be in around. So yeah, for the girls, I think it's hugely important.
Well, considering Bows are coming to the Bowl at 4 o'clock on Saturday, I'm hoping you've been making it a little bit more hostile than having a lovely summer's day for them to welcome them. Your first game, obviously, in the job, Bows, the visitors, they've been on a reasonable run of form. Sarah Rowe put an absolute scorcher of a goal at the weekend. What a volley. But in terms of them as opposition, any thoughts going into that game?
Yeah, look, I think all games over the last season or two have been really competitive. I think there's only been the odd goal in all of them, bar the last game. So it's exciting. The girls are really looking forward to it. I think it'll be a really good competitive game of football, and hopefully we can get something out of it.
Just in terms of the game itself, like there's rivalries on both sides now, with players having transitioned from Bows to DLR, from DLR to Bows. Does that add anything extra to it, Laura?
Yeah, look, I mean, it does. It'd be silly to say that it doesn't. I mean, I think it's more between the girls themselves, just the banter and the bragging rights. I think more than anything. The girls they're all old enough to realise that's football. It's happening at every club now, and probably a little bit more now than what it had in recent seasons. So I think if you're going down that route, I think every fixture now is super competitive. There's been a lot of movement, but yeah, look, we'll treat it as any other game. Obviously, it'd be nice to welcome some of the girls back to the Bowl. And it's just another game.
In terms of that change over the last 6 months from the amateur to professional game, has that made much of an impact in your squad? I know you've lost a couple of players, some have come in, but can you compete in that professional era?
Yeah, look, I think that has to be the game and the end goal for every club, and not just ourselves. I think it is a great move for the league in general. It's just now, managing how we all step up and graduate towards, your Samrock Rovers and your more professional sides. It's going to take time, obviously, a little bit longer for some than others, but yeah, that has to be the end goal for every club now.
Is it about managing expectations though, in terms of this? Because everybody says professional this, professional that, but it's not as simple as just every club going professional. Like, how do you manage them expectations? Because players are obviously going to be tempted by offers to go elsewhere because there's a financial reward where maybe the likes of DLR can't compete at the minute with that.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's pros and cons to the professional status and the contracts and everything else. Even what we just spoke about, the movement between clubs in transfer windows and things like that, it's not going to be as straightforward now. Players are tied down to clubs, and there's going to be protocols to exiting those contracts and things like that. So yeah, where it is a great move and it is where everybody wants to get to, it's probably not as straightforward as what we think it'll be going forward.
Absolutely. It's interesting times ahead for everybody in the league, but especially with all this change in DLR this week. Laura, thanks so much for joining us. I know it's been a busy 24 hours for you, probably 48 hours in the build-up to last night's announcement, and the very best of luck to you and your girls at the weekend.
Thanks a million, lads.
Cheers, Laura.
Laura Heffernan there. It's great to see that kind of quality just stepping into that role. No real major upset within the camp, just we're moving on to the next individual in line, and to have someone of the caliber of Laura coming in with the experience that she brings, it's absolutely huge for the club, right?
I'm just thinking here to myself, how many other clubs would have a pro licensed coach and then another pro licensed coach who's currently on the course in their coaching staff in the women's league? Not many. Like the one thing you sort of look, like if you look around most of the clubs in the minute and a manager leaves, you start thinking who's going to take over. Whereas when you hear Graham's leaving, it was always going to be the expected move. Like, I think for Laura's honest there that the fact that Laura probably admit there was probably mistakes made when she was managing Wexford, and she's learned an awful lot from what's happened there, how she's transitioned. I think the fact that she's good success with the DLR Waves and the 19s as well is key as well. And I think for her, like she's a lot to prove. There'll be a lot of people who will say, can she step up again? Can she make the transition back into the number one job? It'll be one that we'll watch with close intent. But you can see from her how positive she is about it, how intense she is, how much she wants to make it a success. And like for DLR Waves, I assume the players are absolutely delighted for the fact that they've got that continuity. As Laura says, it's not a case of having a completely different squad, having a completely different management come in where midway through the season. So it's good for Waves, and I think hopefully Laura can get them the way she wants them, and she can have some success in the second half of the season.
Absolutely. I think it's very important as well. You touched on it briefly in the interview. Laura spoke to it as well, but the impact of having a female coach back on the sideline. We've been missing that from the league this season, and kind of having a bit of influence from the female side of the coaching pool in terms of the league as well. Let's maybe start with DLR's game. We touched on it briefly. Shamrock Rovers were the hosts in Tala. DLR scored early on and then fell 4-1 behind up to half time, but they really came out in the second half and showed that maybe their position doesn't quite reflect the ability in that squad.
Like, to be honest with you, they were missing, like you look for the last couple of weeks, they've been missing the likes of Sarah McKevitt, they've been missing Eve O'Brien, Joy Ralph, players who've potential to score goals, and I think that's what they've been lacking most, is the ability to put the ball on the back of the net. Like, you look at the results against Shelbourne, it was the two goals are probably preventable, a bit of experience. Like, experience is probably the biggest thing for them, and this year is a massive learning curve, and I think for the fact that they didn't just roll over and concede 6, 7, 8 against Shamrock Rovers and just have a massive off day, I think there's a lot of credit to them, and especially how they performed in the second half. People may say Shamrock Rovers took the foot off the gas a little bit, but even if they did, DLR Waves still have to play to get back into the game, and I think that's probably the most pleasing thing, is the way they responded after going in 4-1 down at half time, and they're disappointed that they don't take something away from the game. So I think that's probably the biggest positive, and the fact they've scored 3 goals as well in the game is huge, because they hadn't scored many goals in the last couple of games previously. So there's lots of positive for Waves to take away from Shamrock Rovers' point of view. They can continue that unbeaten run. It keeps going. They're continuing to score goals. Jess Gargan, again, she hasn't scored this many goals in a season before, I don't think. And for me, and I said it last year, if she didn't get injured in the Champions League, she probably wins Player of the Year for me. And that's how much I highly, highly rate her. Savannah McCarthy scoring again. Abby Larkin is finding the right time to come into a bit of form with the World Cup, with the Ireland squad getting together soon for the World Cup. So from Shamrock Rovers' viewpoint, absolutely have to be happy. You have to be happy with another win. Collie O'Neill will obviously be disappointed to concede 3 goals, but you know, it was an interesting game, and one I think both sides will take a lot of learnings away from.
Yeah, I think Shamrock Rovers, from my point of view, almost looked to take a foot off the gas when they went 4-1 up. They thought that the game won, and they kind of let DLR back into it, in my opinion. But what do I know? But in terms of the performance, really impressive first half from Shamrock Rovers, and then DLR just stepped it up completely in the second half. I was at, I don't even want to call it a match. It was anything but. Wasn't a great afternoon in terms of weather. The football wasn't a whole pile better as well. The rain just never stopped from start to finish. Sligo Rovers hosted Shells. I knew Shells were coming in as favourites, obviously, but it was very one-sided. And from his 9th minute, I think Noel Murray got a penalty, and Gemma Quinn was taken down in the box. A poor challenge, and once the penalty was dispatched, there was never likely to be anybody but Shells winning that game. They ran out 6-0 winners in the end. Gemma Quinn popped up with 2 goals. Megan Smith-Lynch got a very nice opportunistic free kick at the near post to just caught goalkeeper napping. Just caught the whole defence napping, to be fair. There was a bit of a mess up for an OG as well at the back, and Sligo just never really looked like they were able to compete with Shells at all.
The problem with Shells is when Shells click, Shells are capable of doing this, and they're capable of running riot. At times they probably haven't clicked the way they would have wanted in this season, but for me it's probably one game that they've a little bit of demons over as well from last year, that they probably wanted to go out and make a statement, because the way they were beaten in the game live on TG Carr last year, there's no doubt it didn't sit well with them having been leading 2-0. But like, the one thing you will say, and no disrespect to Sligo, is that it just shows the gulf between the two teams, and the gulf is massive between the top and the bottom. And like, Shells put 6 past Sligo, put 6 past Cork. Like, the gap is as big as it seems. And like for Shels, Gemma Quinn to score 2 goals again, 2 goals last week. It's mad to think that she spent 9 years that she didn't play football at all, and she's only come back into the league last year. And if she'd have been playing all along, I think she'd be a completely different footballer to what she is right now. And I think Shels would have a massive goal scorer, but for them, it's a great result for Shelbourne. For Sligo, it's a really disappointing result, especially off the back of the game against Cork. But it's not one that maybe wasn't unexpected as well at the same time.
Yeah, Sligo missing a few players, it has to be said, through injury, but I'm not sure if they would have made a significant difference on the score sheet on Saturday afternoon. But not a great night for the Bitter Red. Other games, of course, we had plenty of action. Let's talk about that game at live on TG Car. Bohs Athlone. Bohs were in control of this game, and then Athlone snatched the result at the last kick of the game, or so they thought. But 15 seconds later, Mia Dodd has the ball in the back of the net. Bohs, though, it's very hard to see a team score a goal like the volley that Sarah Rowe put away, I mentioned in the chat with Laura, and not take all 3 points. They're probably shaving this on the balance of play.
We've a great gif on our social media of actually Sarah from behind when she's striking the volley, and it's a brilliant, the way she actually struck it is superb. But like Mia Dodd again, another 2 goals for Mia Dodd. That's 4 and 4. She only didn't score in one of the games, and for me, is probably someone who's on course for Player of the Month at the minute. She's been absolutely fantastic for Bohs. I think Sarah Rowe's been brilliant as well. But like the biggest thing about Bohs is in previous years they concede that late penalty, they might go and concede another quick late goal. Like I don't want to do this, Breifne, but I feel I have to. You have to question the goalkeeping for the third goal for Bohs. Like, yes, it's a brilliant finish from Mia Dodd, but what's the keeper doing in that situation? And it's one that it's cost our side a point. And if you're Tommy Hewitt, you're probably pulling your hair out thinking we should have had something out of that game, considering they'd lost the games the previous couple of weeks against the top sides as well. It was a good opportunity for them to stop the rot. It now turns the gap between them and Bohs to 8 points, which is an awful lot considering where we are in the season at the minute. And it's a difficult one because Athlone are just struggling for that little bit of form, haven't had the couple of losses, and it was an opportunity for them to turn it around. But it was good character by Bohs to go and press and try and get that goal straight away. It was a great game. It was a great game to have on TV when you've got 5 goals, and considering the TG Car cameras were competing with other major events on Saturday evening, I think it's a good showing for them to have that. It's just, from an Athlone point of view, it's just really disappointing that you can see it later on. But Bohs are happy. 4 wins on the bounce for them. They haven't lost since the 4-0 defeat to Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, they're just sitting 4 points off the top of the table. We'll look at that table when we get through the whole programme from last weekend. Let's go maybe down to Pearl Park across the city from Dalymount. No cameras, of course, no highlights available either because of I believe a camera malfunction. Not quite sure what happened with that, but disappointed not to have had images from Pearl Park. 2-0 the final score. Sive Doyle, the Galway girl, putting 2 past her, I suppose, her native club, if you want to be exact about it. Peamount still top of the league. Considering what we expected coming into the season, to have reached the halfway point, sitting pretty on top of the table, that's got to be an absolutely massive result for Peamount at this point of the year.
The only thing is, though, I think Peamount be sitting where they are now with a bit of resentment, or a bit of looking back with a bit of displeasing, because they definitely dropped 2 points against Shamrock Rovers, and the second half against Shelbourne when they capitulated, when they lost 4-1. That's 5 points that they've dropped where they shouldn't have dropped. They probably shouldn't have dropped. They probably in control and shit against Shells in the first half, then the 4 goals in the second half and lose, and then against Shamrock Rovers, the amount of chances they had, Collie O'Neill was nearly buzzing leaving the place with it, getting out of jail. So like, it could be even further ahead for Peamount. And I think if they look back at that, that's the one thing they'll say is they left some points on the table that they probably shouldn't have. But like, they're doing brilliantly at the minute, and the thing is, they're just churning the results along. They're pushing results out week after week. Like, I know I said Mia Dodd's probably a massive front runner for Player of the Month. Sive Doyle's not far behind her. Slife Doyle never gives you less than an 8.5 out of 10 performance in midfield for Peamount. And like the thing for Peamount is that they're coming along nicely. People probably still aren't talking about them that much at the minute. People are still talking about Shells. They're still talking about all the other clubs. And James O'Callaghan just has that knack of getting results out of a side and driving the side on. And I think a lot has to go down to the coaching staff, the likes of himself, Brian O'Sullivan, Emma Donoghue as well, because they lost a lot of players. They also lost Vinnie Patterson in the window in the off season as well, who's gone back to managing the Leinster Senior League. So there was a lot of change on and off the field, and you wouldn't think there was that much change if you looked at it from the outside. You wouldn't think, looking at the table, Peamount had massive changes, because they've just continued to turn on players. They brought in the likes of Jess Fitzgerald, who's been brilliant for them. But then, like, it's mad when you think that they are top of the league at this stage, and listen, they rightly deserve to be top of the league. In terms of Galway, though, it's the first away defeat that Galway have had this season. Every other game they've been in, especially when they've been in Dublin, they've come away with 3 points. They'll have another big one this week. They'll be disappointed. It was an opportunity for them to potentially move back up and close the gap, even to move back up at the level of Peamount, and they missed that opportunity. But the top sides playing each other, there's going to be results throughout the second half of the season where they're all going to drop points. And for Peamount, it's just another one. It's another one that they tick off to say, okay, Galway done, another 3 points.
Yeah, there's a nice feel to the league table as we enter that run in. 6 points separating those top 5 sides. The final game we're going to get to, and for me, this is the one I feel you mentioned it. The first thing you said was how gutted you were for Treaty United. I think they're everybody's favourite second team this year. They were so close to getting all 3 points. They led twice in the game. They went 1-0 up to Hayley Walsh early on. Nicola Sinnott scored a relatively late goal to look like she'd earned a draw, and then Cara Griffin almost sealed what looked to be a fantastic victory for them, 3 minutes from time, but it wasn't to be, and it was a late goal that edged Wexford back into the game. Emily Corbett scoring in. She's had a rough time of it down in Wexford as well since she's moved down there. Things haven't maybe clicked as much as she'd like. For her, I'm delighted for her to get on the score sheet and to have secured a point, but it's so difficult to look at Treaty and not feel really, really sorry for how much fight they brought to the table this year.
Yeah, like as I said last week, I thought they could have got something out of the game, and when you're seeing that and you're sort of thinking, oh, they nearly got all 3 points, you're absolutely gutted for them. Like as we had with Anne-Marie Ulach on the show last week, and the more we listened to her, the more we wanted to see Treaty be successful. Della Doherty talking to her recently, where she was saying that, you know, how she's been impressed with Treaty. Like the one thing is like recent years, we sort of look back and we're sort of planning stuff, and you're like, who we have on the show, and you're sort of thinking, Treaty, they've got Peamount and Wexford, could be a bad couple of weeks. And the fact that they lose 1-0 to Peamount, a late goal, and then you can see the late goal against Wexford to nick them of all 3 points and give them just a draw. Like, it's amazing that we're talking about it, that we're gutted that they didn't win a game rather than the fact where they've come from. And I think a lot of it is testament to the squad that they have there. As Kieran McCormick said on Twitter over the weekend, they're no longer the pushover side that are going to be beaten out the door, and people are going to actually have to respect Treaty now for what they've done. And like, to lead twice against Wexford, like, that's brilliant. You know, that's the sort of thing, like you said on the show last week, Breifne, you talked about Treaty scoring goals, where, you know, we talked about that's what they're going to have to do next, and to score twice against Wexford and not come away with something, it's a sort of it's a bitter pill for them. But like, it's the first time they've taken any sort of result against Wexford Youths in the Women's National League as well. So like, they're still ticking off boxes. They're still ticking off things that they haven't done before. And I think we have to give Wexford credit, because when they fall behind the second time, it's easy just to sort of, you know, realise, listen, things aren't going well at the minute, and they lose all 3 points, and to have the character to push to try and get that equaliser and to get it laid on. As you say, Emily Corbett hasn't worked out for at the minute at Wexford. That's the bones of it, and we'd all love to see it work out for her, but sometimes it doesn't when you move to these sort of clubs. And to see her get the late goal, you can only be delighted for her, and hopefully it's sort of the kickstart that she needs, and she continues to get opportunities at Wexford and scores more goals, because there's no doubt she's got a lot of ability. But from a Wexford youth point of view, like, it's difficult looking at when we look at the league table now in a minute to look where Wexford Youths are. We're not used to that, and considering their form at the minute hasn't been great at all either.
To be fair, they have a game in hand against Cork. If they win that, they're only 3 points off fifth and kind of within that leading group on the table. Let's take a quick look at that table as we sit here 10 games in, but 11 rounds of games into the Women's Premier Division for 2023. Peamount, as we've mentioned a couple of times, top of the table, a single point ahead of Shamrock Rovers, ahead of their visit to Shells this week. So top of the table class, Shells could leapfrog over Peamount on Saturday with victory in Tolka Park, while Shamrock Rovers have a chance to move to the top of the table if Peamount drop points in Tolka. Bows 21 points, Galway United further back on 19. A bit of a gap opening up then back to a group of Athlone and Wexford, albeit with Wexford's game in hand against bottom side Cork. DLR Waves back on 8 points, and Treaty United on 6. Sligo Rovers on 3 after their win against Cork just 2 weeks ago, and Cork City at the foot of the table, albeit with that game in hand. We've kind of seen this. It's been growing year on year. Athlone, Wexford, they're probably disappointed with where they are in the league table, but they do have the opportunity over the next couple of weeks to really get back in and play everybody again and hopefully get themselves back up closer to that top 4, top 5 position that they would have expected at the start of the season.
Yeah, but the only thing is, though, from a Wexford viewpoint, Wexford, you're sort of talking start of the season, the players they brought in, Wexford are one of the favourites for the league. It hasn't really worked for them in the first half of the season, and you look at the fact that it's only a 20 game season as well. It's probably the hard thing to take as well. That the fact that we're at the midway point already, and they're so far behind. Like, realistically, for Wexford to have any chance of making top 4, they're probably going to have to go unbeaten in the win their last 10 games. That can really push on. And the problem is, at the minute, you can't really see that. It's a difficult one in that sort of sense, and you'd wonder, is the frustrations grown at the minute, just the way the results haven't gone their way. From an Athlone point of view as well, I'd say they're frustrated because the last couple of weeks they've had, obviously, Tommy, you had the penalty call against Shells, then the late goal again here. It's small margins is what's making a big difference in this league, and I think that's probably the biggest part of when you play maybe the top 8, or even if you'd go down as far as on their day the top 9. People can take points off the top 9, or the top 9 can take points off each other on their day. So that's the sort of thing that you're looking at, and like I can only imagine that the way things are going at the minute, the likes of Wexford will drop, and Athlone will probably drop a lot, quite a few points in the second half of the season. And I think the gap between the top 4, I think include Galway, maybe top 5, the gap might grow a little bit more as the second half of the season goes on.
Well, let's see maybe who might have an influence on some of those results as the season progresses. With the top scorers charts at the moment, Kate Mooney still on top of the top goal scorers chart, 6 goals to her name after 10 games. LOIWomen, Maddie Gibson and Megan Smith-Lynch, 2 of those girls on the score sheet last week. LOIWomen stays on 5, while Maddie and Megan join her on 5 goals. Sarah Rowe with that volley, Mia Dodd with a brace in that victory over Athlone. A couple of other scorers on the score sheet this week. Gemma Quinn popping up with 2 strikes as well to move her into the top 10 or 11 girls in that table. In terms of the clean sheets, Courtney Maguire with a clean sheet at the weekend. She goes clear at the top of the table. Of course, you'll see 12 minutes missing from there. That, of course, was the opportunity for her understudy, Katie Keane, to get her first appearance for Shells at the end of that game in the Showgrounds. And the other clean sheet of the week, Niamh Reid-Burke, she moves up into joint second place with Amanda Budden and Rachel Kelly at the top of that table. But plenty of clean sheets there for the girls coming through. Anything surprising you on either of those 2 statistics, the scorers or the clean sheets tables?
Yeah, the goal scorers one is probably what we're not used to at this stage. We're probably used to seeing someone after 10 games being closer to double figures than being closer to 5 for the top scorer. 6 goals.
Is that a sign of a lower standard of striker or a better standard of organisation of defences?
Probably a bit of both, Breifne, because I'd assume if you look at the goal difference from 10 games in from last year, I'd say there was a lot bigger minuses in the goal differences between now and then. I think the only difference is, and we spoke about this heavily in the last couple of weeks, is that yes, Treaty have a massive minus goal difference, but 14 of them goals came in 2 games alone, and so like if you take that out, like last year, I think Treaty conceded was 125 goals in 27 games last year, so which is quite a lot of goals, and at times there was players scoring hat-tricks and stuff like that, especially with some of the other games when there was high scoring as well. Whereas I think the games this year, yes, there's been more scorers as well, but there's also been less massive high scoring games as well. There's been a lot closer games. There's been a lot more competitiveness in the games. But like when I'm looking at the top scoring list, Mia Dodd has probably scored her 4 goals in the month of May. Gemma Quinn has scored her 4 goals in the month of May. So like there's players who are now starting to hit fire who probably hadn't scored in the first couple of months as well. And I expect to see. I wouldn't be surprised the 2 names that I've mentioned there if they continue to score more goals in the next couple of weeks either.
Anyone you expect to see maybe that's not on those lists come through over the next few weeks, particularly with the Avenir Cup, maybe letting us see some of the fringe players and spots?
It's a difficult one. You think Rihanna Jarrett, she's missed the last couple of games for Wexford. She may feature in the second half of the season. Like there's players who've been on the list for the last couple of years who maybe haven't necessarily hit it now, but I think I just think it's a sign of the way the league is going that more and more scorers are there. But there's definitely players to watch out for. I think young Eve O'Brien from DLR Waves could score a couple of goals there. They need to get Joy Ralph back to really have an opportunity at the minute of scoring goals. And like it's difficult because some teams have scored an awful lot less goals this year than they would have been in the previous year. So that's why we're probably not seeing as many of the names that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I am just trying to build the question you asked about last year's league table. I'm actually trying to build a league table as we speak. I'm just doing the mental arithmetic and the graphic design at the moment. Let's maybe take a quick look at that Avenir Cup, and you can talk us through the draw for that competition, because there's some interesting, we touched on it with Laura, but there's some interesting groups. Some maybe, I know the Peamount Shamrock Rovers group looks particularly difficult, but in terms of that DLR Treaty Cork, it looks like it's winnable, that group, for any of the 4 sides in it.
Oh, 100%. It's 100%. And I think the thing is, the way the competition is structured, it's all going to be about if clubs play some of their fringe players. It's about who comes out on top with the fringe players, or do some clubs go with their full strength teams and try and win the competition. But like the DLR Cork Treaty and Crusaders group, anybody could come out with that. I think if you look at like even Group A, like to nail on to say who's definitely going to come out of that, we probably can't at the minute. I think it's a really good group as well, and like I would expect Bows to probably come out of Group C, considering the opposition that they've got there, and then in Group B, it's a toss up. It can be absolutely anybody if Shamrock Rovers play a couple of the youth players, if Peamount play a couple of the youth, and same with Wexford Youths, Glentoran could come right back in, could come into it as well, and potentially come out of that group. So it's one that's there's so much. How would you say? There's so much opportunities. There's so much. It's a competition that whichever club probably takes the most seriously from in terms of the National League clubs will have the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, you asked, actually, I didn't quite finish that one correctly, but you did ask for that league table. I'll bring it up in just a second, just so we can compare it. But the Avenir Cup, positive for the league or not positive for the league?
So the problem is at the minute, and this is being honest, the problem is the timing. There's no other alternative at the minute. They either have to play a normal League Cup or do something in that window, because you can't have an 8-week window where there's nothing. I understand players will probably be like, looking at that, thinking there might have been a break when they first heard about this season. Is it something that's sustainable at the way it is at the minute? I don't know. It's all going to be trial and error the first year. I think if it clicks, it could click very well. It could click very well. It could not work at all. I'm interested to see how it does go. Like, don't get me wrong, there's definitely an idea of involvement. So, for example, like, the one thing I don't like about it, and this is just being honest, is I don't like the fact that it's picked 5 teams out of the North. I don't like that. Realistically, I would nearly prefer to see the entire 21 teams in it from the 3 groups. Even if you only play 7 groups of 3, you only do 7 groups of 3, and then you sort of play each other. You play 2 games in the group, and then you're looking at you're going to maybe go into a quarter final, even if you only go into a quarter finals where the top 7 group winners and the best one runner up goes into a quarter final, for example. But I think if we're going to do something, if we're going to have all the National League teams involved, we have to have inclusion of all the Northern Ireland League in. You can't be picking and choosing to say, oh, we'll have 5 from the North in and we'll have the rest from the South, the rest of the teams from the South in. That doesn't work for me. That's the only thing that doesn't really sit right at the minute, just because it's sort of if we're talking about inclusion, we include everybody. If we're going to change it up next year and have maybe a Setanta Cup style thing where we only have the top 3 or top 4 from each league, that's fine. But we need to sort of strike a fine balance, and I do think it's good that the FAI are looking at things just to sort of bridge the gap for the World Cup. But I can't see the timing of it being there again next year. I hope the competition is a success and we can evolve it even into some other way. Even if it's played as a pre-season competition for all clubs, that might be another potential opportunity or avenue, because both seasons are really a sort of a summer league.
Let's jump in quickly just to take a quick look at that league table. This is the league table as it stands today, and you talked about the comparison and goal difference between last year's table. This is last year's table after 10 games. So as you can see, quite similar. Peamount obviously a good 6 points further up the league table when we compare them. This is obviously last year's table on 19 points. Now they're on 25. Shells a little bit further back on 27, now on 22. But the goal difference, very similar at the top, but it's at the bottom in particular where Cork and Treaty probably 10 goals better off or 15 goals better off than they were this time this year than they were last year.
But yeah, and look, the funny thing is, you even look at the likes of Bows there. Bows last year had 2 wins after 10 games. They've 7 this year, and like even them sitting on a -5 goal difference. Then again, like I know the result didn't count in the end, but you're looking at the result of Sligo and Peamount on the opening day of the season. That would have been another 6 goals potentially added to it last year, but it was eventually taken off when the result was changed. So, like, I think that the teams at the bottom, the goal difference isn't, as I say, it isn't as big. And like you look at Peamount, you look at Cork, the fact that it's a 2-1 loss against Peamount last year, that might have been 5 or 6. Yes, they had the big loss against Shells when they lost 6-0. But like, there is a you can see yourself, you have it there on the screen, the comparison. Like, as you say, Treaty are 15 goals better off.
Yeah, it's something like that. I'm sorry, just moving slightly too big for the screen, but you get the idea.
17 goals better off Treaty are from this period to last year, which is a massive number.
And like, when you take out those 2 heavy beatings they took at the start of the year,
-3,
it's 14 goals. It's a much healthier position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the comparison. And like even you look at the fact that they've had a win and 3 draws, whereas at this stage last year they were winless and they were chasing their shadows. But it's obvious then when you look at the likes of Cork and you look at the likes of Sligo, how far they've slightly dropped down the table. Like, it's mad when we compare side by side how much of a comparison from even the clubs in terms of their own results. Like Bows are another example. They're +4 this year. They were -5 at that stage last year.
Yeah, they've almost switched records from 4th last to 4th in the table, and 21 points versus now 21 points dropped last year. It's interesting just to kind of to look at it, but we are getting distracted. This wasn't part of our plan for the show tonight, so we'll move away just to kind of reinforce the facts and figures behind the actual competitions. We've touched on the Avenir Cup. Let's maybe look at the fixtures for next weekend. We've touched on a couple of them already. The big one, of course, Shells versus Peas at Tolka Park at 2 o'clock. Nothing up against it, other than maybe the warm-ups in Belfield, where DLR hosts Bohemians in that first game. For Laura Heffernan, who we obviously thanked to have on the show earlier. Cork City are in action on Saturday afternoone as well. I didn't write in who they were playing. Shamrock Rovers versus Galway at 5:30 in Tala, while Treaty versus Athlone. That game takes place in Athlone, not the Markets Field, as I've written there. I was a bit of a rush doing fixtures tonight, but all joking aside, that is some interesting games this week. Your thoughts on where we're going to go with those?
Yeah, it's gonna be a massive week. I think that the three games in Dublin in particular are huge for all different reasons. Like Galway coming back to Dublin for the second time in 2 weeks, and for me the big one and the one that I'll be at, Shells and Peamount. There'll be no love lost between the two sides. No King still suspended for one more game. Pearl Slattery will be missing it through injury. There's a lot on the line in that game, and I think if Peamount can get the 3 points on that, because Peamount's run in the second half of the season is really difficult. They've got to go to Shells, they've got to go to Wexford, and they've got to go to Shamrock Rovers. They had them all at home in the first phase of the league. Plus, they've also got to go to Galway as well. So all the teams in and around them, they have to go to them. So for them, it's about, can they knock another 3 points off? For Shelbourne will be looking to capitalise on any mistakes that have been made. These games between the two sides always tend to be close, and I suspect that Saturday may be another close occasion. Laura's game against Bohs, as we said, there's a lot in it. There's both sides know each other very well. They're looking for results for different reasons. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting games this week. I think Wexford should get back to winning ways against Cork. I'm intrigued to see how Treaty get on against Athlone.
Yeah, you're taking
really intrigued
there. I think it's a game Athlone need to win, but it's a game I think Treaty can cause another surprise in. We've had a season full of surprises from them, and I think they can really compete against a team like Athlone. But we saw that little bit of resilience from Athlone last week to fight back. Okay, they lost the game in the end, but they did pull it back in injury time, and there's a little bit of magic in that squad as well for Athlone. So that's a game I think well worth watching on Saturday evening if you've kind of got over the Shells Peamount clash at 2:00 to sit down and watch that one on LOI TV.
The great thing for me is on Saturday is there's nothing else in the evening planned for me. So it'll probably be when I come back from Tolka Park, it'll be straight to LOI TV, then on to another game, and then on down. So there's lots of games to keep us occupied over the weekend, and I'm looking forward because
I'm on duty in the showgrounds, so I won't get to see them in person, but I might have a sneaky laptop on in the corner for watching that Athlone Treaty game. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this show this week. We've run out of time. We like trying to keep it below the hour before you all get absolutely bored. You can, of course, watch this back on playback on all of our socials, as well as on our website, finalwhistle.ie. Thank you so much to Aaron for another week going through the intricacies of what is an ever-changing and ever-evolving league here. We saw that in no small margin this week with the appointment of Laura Heffernan back to the dugout in the Women's Premier Division. She, after a bit of a gap at the top table, she's back with DLR Waves after they, lost Graham Kelly this week. He was took up a role with St. Patrick's Athletic. I'll get shot if I say that wrong. With St. Patrick's Athletic in the men's league. So a nice step up into the professional game for Graham. Laura, big shoes to fill, but no doubt no better woman to fill them, and it's great that it is a woman who takes up the hot seat in the Women's Premier Division. Many more, hopefully, to follow in her footsteps over the coming years and maybe decades as well. Aaron, anything you want to leave us with this week? Any thoughts? Jerry
No, the only thing I will say is get to a game if you can get to a game, because all the games this weekend, we don't know what surprises are going to be in tail for us, and I'm sure we'll be talking about one or two next week.
Absolutely, as always. For us this week, it's been great. Thanks for your company. We'll be back again next week with another look inside the Women's Premier Division of the League of Ireland. Talk to you then.